Hello, dear digital ship friends. Welcome to the last webinar of November. Today we are discussing how to get the most out of your connectivity provider. Our guest speakers, Chris Schonhut and James Ingham from Applied Satellite Technology, has actually a great story to tell you. AST is also the sponsor of this webinar that we are very grateful for. And all the way through the webinar, we encourage you to ask questions. And as always, I'm excited to invite Carl Jeffrey, founding editor of Digital Ship, to give the introduction first.
Hey, thank you, Vida. So the theme today is getting the most of your connectivity provider. So what we mean by that is you're seeing the bills of what you spend on satellite communications, but how much do you know about what you're actually getting for your money? Often people don't know very much at all. So applied satellite technology, I think it's fairly unique in the shipping satcom providers in that all the satellite traffic is going through their own networks. So they've got very good insights onto what the data is actually being used for, which I think is fairly rare among satcom companies. So we're about to see something which I've never seen before on our webinars, which is data showing how the actual SATCOM use is changing, not just the bandwidth or the volume of data, but the use over the COVID period and for other business changes. So that's very interesting. So the sort of thing we're getting into, so you might know the experience, you buy a laptop and you turn it on and all of a sudden it's downloading tons of data and you don't really know what it's downloading. It might be Windows updates, it might be something you don't even want, but that's normally fine. But if you're paying SATCOM prices for it, you probably want to know what it is. Or it might be, if you've got limited bandwidth speed, you want to make sure you're getting your important business communications through it. And the same problems are happening on ships. So we hear about seafarers who've got a OneDrive or a Google Drive, which is synchronizing all the stuff, but it's all doing it over a satellite communications link and people don't even know that it's doing it necessarily. Or it can be people downloading videos, which they do know they're doing, but the company doesn't necessarily want. And there's also possible malicious uses. So we can have apps installed on people's phones and computers, which people don't even know about, which might be hiding their own IP address or continually changing their IP address or using virtual private networks to get around the firewalls. So applied satellite technology has worked out some clever ways they can spot that happening, and then what they can do is they can block the actual software application from getting into the SATCOM network, not just blocking the IP address, which is quite clever. So applied satellite technology is born in Great Yarmouth, which is on the eastern coast of the UK, about 3 hours east of where we are here in London. But they've got offices in Europe, US, South America, Asia and Australia, and they're providing satellite and radio communication services, working in maritime, oil and gas and other sectors. So they're going to show us how their customers are actually really using their satellite communications and how that's changing in shipping. And they're going to give us some ideas about how customers can better manage and understand their satellite communications to make sure you're using it most efficiently and getting the lowest cost options available and understanding what you're doing with it. And they've also got a suite of their own services to give to their own customers to identify and measure the traffic for different applications and prioritize the bandwidth for different applications. So first of all, we've got Chris Schonhut, who's the head of Maritime Sales and Operations, EMEA at Applied Satellite Technology. He's been at AST for 7 years, and he'll be followed by James Ingham, who's the product manager at Applied Satellite Technology. And as usual, we've got plenty of time for your questions, so please send your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and you can also like other people's questions so we can see which questions to address first. So I'd like to invite Chris to start giving his talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, and good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. So I'd just like to start with a quick background about AST. So we were founded in 1992 by our owner and chairman, Gregory Darling, and we've been providing connectivity solutions for over 28 years in the maritime sector. We provide a multitude of connectivity services from all major satellite operators, and this includes global and regional KU and KA VSAT services, alongside L Band connectivity. And we really work with our customers to provide the right satellite service based on the vessel requirements. Over recent years, AST has transitioned as a business, and we now provide complete end-to-end connectivity solutions, investing in our own AST developed technology. We've created an intuitive My AST portal, which provides the gateway to our INTEGRA network and the suite of INTEGRA solutions that we have on offer. All these connectivity solutions AST provide are delivered by 180 staff across our global offices, as Carl mentioned, in key maritime locations. This is all backed up and supported by a UK-based 24/7 support team. So the first thing I'd like to look at today are the challenges we see our customers facing. So demand for bandwidth on board vessels is ever increasing. There's lots of talk of satellite operators advertising new networks with game-changing speeds, but they're not available today to service this demand. We see most global sailing commercial vessels have a 2 megabits per second, maximum 4 megabits per second connection, trying to serve a multitude of stakeholders, all interested in using that vessel connection. It's not just the crew driving demand. Vessel operators want more data to enable informed decision-making on vessel efficiency projects. And to help control this demand, onboard networks, firewalls, and network design is becoming increasingly complex. They're of course essential for operating vessel connectivity, but understanding how efficient these networks are is often very difficult to analyze and also time-consuming. The other thing is the remote management and adjustment of the onboard network is difficult on a vessel in the middle of the ocean. The devices are often complex and do not always provide the full picture of what is actually happening on board. So in today's webinar, we'll present some application usage data across the AST network and explore how AST's INTEGRA solutions assist in managing vessel communication links. We're providing real-time visibility of the IP traffic at application level, even when the data is encrypted. The data provided and shown today is from thousands of vessels in all maritime market verticals, with the idea being to provide an insight into what applications are the top users on both VSAT and L Band services. It's important to note that each vessel has different network policies in place, but from the data we see running over our network, we can see some definite trends in application usage on board. Through AST INTEGRA solutions, we provide detailed information on what is using a vessel connection in real time with instant control. This allows you to maximize bandwidth efficiency and ease congestion. Utilizing this visibility allows the vessel to benefit from a consistent satellite performance. So what are some of the drivers behind the large amount of data coming off vessels? So there's an increased number of stakeholders all involved in using a vessel connection. We see IT teams, operational teams, crew, and even more so third-party vendors now, such as engine manufacturers. They all want to use a vessel connection to gather in data. We mentioned about crew. Each crew member may bring 2 or 3 devices on board with them, and they want to connect all of them to the Wi-Fi. There's very limited visibility as to which applications these devices are running and how much data they are actually generating. So more and more applications are encrypted. For example, WhatsApp, which bypass traditional firewalls. These undetectable applications not only eat into your bandwidth allowance, but can pose a significant risk to cybersecurity. The reporting we see today isn't very detailed or in real time, so it's difficult to see how much traffic is actually passing over the satellite connection. Again, this congestion creates poor user experience on board the vessel and can, in some cases, become a barrier for rolling out onboard digitalization projects. So the diagram in the slide just shows how the data presented today is available to AST and our customers. So we can identify this data with direct connections to all major satellite providers and operators, taking that data straight from the satellite provider. This IP traffic transits AST's global INTEGRA MPLS network, and the inspection of traffic is undertaken at AST's points of presence in London, New York, and Sydney prior to breaking out on the internet. This allows the real-time visibility and control. The INTEGRA network has multiple layers of cybersecurity controls to maximize protection against threats. The first layer, an advanced firewall, controls traffic and blocks abnormal connections. The second layer is web filtering with anti-malware and antivirus protection, and the third layer is intrusion prevention. This provides near zero-day protection against known and emerging threats, which can generate additional unwanted traffic. Each AST customer receives a login to My AST portal, enabling our customers to view and control application usage in an easy-to-use portal via our INTEGRA C and control services. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague James, who's going to walk us through some of the data. Thanks, Chris.
I wanted to start by asking, how do you identify what is really consuming onboard data? Through AST's suite of INTEGRA solutions, they're designed to put you in control and manage your satellite communications in real time in order to support you to make a decision that are backed by intelligence. I'll now walk you through some examples of how we provide you with this intelligence and visibility of this data that is being used on board. I will share visuals of category and application usage, trends that we have identified in current satellite data usage passing through our network from a sample group of several thousand vessels. However, as an AST customer, all this information is also available at a SIM level and is accessible via our My AST portal, specifically through INTEGRA C and control. To begin, I wanted to look at the current L band usage by our customers. I've picked out 3 categories to review: real-time entertainment, social networking, and real-time communication. The data we see here is based on the 3 previous quarters, December to February, March to May, and June to August of this year. And we can see during this period that social networking and real-time communication have continued to grow quarter on quarter. This detailed information about the behavior of data usage helps ships captains and IT teams to identify the categories that are being used on our L band satellite connection. But AST's goal is to give you more information than this, so you can identify the data usage at an application level. For example, pinpointing that WhatsApp Voice has been using 250 megabytes of your VSAT companion plan over the current calendar month. We have developed INTEGRA C+ that gives you the visibility of applications being accessed by devices on your satellite service. This insight allows you to put controls in place on specific categories or applications based on this information to ensure that bandwidth is preserved for business critical communications. Through AST's INTEGRA C+ service, you can identify at an application level the data that is being used, and this can help you to make intelligent decisions on your bandwidth management, utilizing this level of previously unknown data. This graph illustrates the data passing through our network on the L band service, and it's interesting to identify the trends of data usage, especially with the global pandemic that we're all experiencing this year. L band is largely used as a backup service aboard most maritime vessels, so I'll also discuss business critical applications separately on a further slide. So one area of interest is the way communication requirements and usage have changed. During the first peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, crew appeared to have been afforded extra access to communication apps to engage with their friends and family while they're out at sea, no doubt caught up in the ongoing crew rotation crisis. You can see this illustrated by the increase in data usage between December 2019 to February 2020 versus March to May this year in the following areas. Facebook usage was up 30%, WhatsApp call was up 30%, and WhatsApp video was up 79%. Once we saw the first peak of the pandemic subside across the summer months, the data started to record a reduction in the following quarter across some applications of real-time communication, such as WhatsApp call usage was down 35%, WhatsApp video call usage was down 80%, but Facebook continued to buck the trend and increased by a further 20%. This reduction across WhatsApp in usage between June to August this year suggests that the perception was the main concerns of the pandemic had passed, and could we be transitioning back to normality? indicating that restrictions on L band satellite usage was lifted during the height of the pandemic, and controls are now being put back in place for WhatsApp call and video call. Through conducting the research of data usage on the L band service, it became apparent the largest consumer of data is email and business critical requirements. L band plays an integral part, allowing continuous operations on the vessel if the VSAT goes down and if they are outside 4G coverage, ensuring that the vessel has put full control over their L band usage at category or application level to ensure only business critical traffic can pass through the network. This helps to avoid unwanted bill shock occurring if the L band service is fully open to data passing through. A vessel manager can have greater confidence in utilizing their satellite communications by implementing our INTEGRA Control solution. Utilizing INTEGRA Control, you can implement real-time alerting at a category level, and once you've reached a specific data level for this category, you can suspend the category from consuming any further data. For example, if during the pandemic you allocated your crew 1 GB for the real-time communication category, you would receive real-time alerts at intervals up to 100% usage for the category and can implement a category suspension at 100% usage. So to surmise, business critical requirements continue to play a prominent role in the consumption of L band data, allowing for continuity of business operations should other services not be available. Trends identified outside of the critical requirements highlighted that allowances were put in place for crew communications and welfare during the peak of the pandemic, and subsequently tighter controls have been reintroduced on WhatsApp call and video call, explaining the reduction in traffic. We have also seen an increase in social networking on the L band service, with Facebook and Instagram maintaining their growth as the prominent applications. So having reviewed the usage of L band and highlighted the main functionality is to ensure business continuity and to avoid significant uncontrolled costs due to non-critical usage, we will now look at primary satellite communications on VSAT. For VSAT, we understand that bandwidth management requires different considerations versus L band, and the focus is on managing efficiency as best as possible on your all-you-can-eat service. This graph illustrates the usage at a category level, and as you can see, non-business critical applications are utilizing significantly more data, and this allows the VSAT bandwidth to support crew welfare during their downtime. It does, however, lead to non-business critical data competing for bandwidth constantly on the vessel. Through our INTEGRA solutions, we can empower you to make data-driven decisions through INTEGRA C by understanding your data usage and controlling and managing a bandwidth-hungry application by blocking it via INTEGRA Control. Now again, we provide detailed information of the type of applications demanding data through your VSAT connection. Facebook and Instagram continue to illustrate their dominance as the main applications utilized for social networking. But you can also see that TikTok appears as a new application in the top 50 usage during June to August. We're seeing more cases where other applications may be blocked within the real-time entertainment category, and crew are using TikTok as an alternative form of entertainment. As you can see from the application usage levels, YouTube has seen a reduction in usage over the previous 2 quarters and coincided with the increase in TikTok. So are we seeing a change in entertainment habits and combining entertainment with communication, and crew also prioritizing short entertainment videos over longer YouTube videos? By identifying this information, it allows you to implement data management policies on your VSAT through understanding the changes in crew's behaviors. So the most interesting area to again highlight is the real-time communication category, where you can see WeChat and Line are continuing to grow in their usage. Line is a South Korean application and is one of the fastest growing messenger apps. Combined with WeChat, we predict that they will grow in levels of usage and can compete with WhatsApp in the future. It also highlights how regionality can dictate application usage, and with in-depth knowledge we can provide, you can understand how your crew are utilizing your VSAT connection and identify the applications in real time. All this information can be utilized to ensure that you're managing your VSAT bandwidth efficiently. Our INTEGRA Control solution will not only allow you to implement category and application blocking, it will also allow you to apply bandwidth throttling at a category level, allowing the crew to continue to utilize their chosen applications, but ensuring that it doesn't swamp your bandwidth. VSAT also provides the main form of communication for business critical applications, and we've identified the considerable growth in usage of Amazon Web Services. This growth illustrates a change in working practice over the last 9 months and the reliance on more cloud-based monitoring systems for the vessels. During this pandemic, the freedom of movement has been increasingly difficult, and thus vessel monitoring and efficiencies have become even more vital in the vessel operations. The cloud-based monitoring solutions are utilizing Amazon's vast data centers to process the information they're receiving back from the vessels. This process and monitoring will continue to grow and become more vital, especially with the announcement by the IMO last week that vessels need to improve their energy efficiency to assist with reaching climate targets being implemented. The usage of Microsoft Outlook illustrates that ships are continuing to become an extension of the shoreside office, and utilizing their VSAT speeds enables this to be possible. A further illustration of this point is over the last quarter, we have also seen SharePoint 365 become a significantly more utilized platform, with the usage moving it into the top 50 applications on VSAT. Both applications illustrate that maritime shipping requirements are changing, and the bridge is continuing to expand its operations as a remote office for the business. So VSAT is acting as the mechanism to help increase digitalization within the shipping industry. This push has seen business critical systems and remote monitoring through AWS increasing in traffic. The AWS servers are being utilized by cloud-based remote monitoring applications to help businesses become more efficient and more informed of activities and functions on the vessel. This process continues to grow in importance as a solution during this difficult period for travel and for greater pushes for efficiency in operations and decarbonization. Within real-time communication, WhatsApp continues to remain the dominant instant messenger service, with WhatsApp video call also increasing steadily compared to previous quarters. And WhatsApp call is also up 51% over the previous 2 quarters. Both line call and WeChat voice, although currently small in usage, continue to gain traction with significant growth across the previous 2 quarters. So could they be future challenges to WhatsApp's dominance? Finally, reflecting L Band's pattern on social networking, we continue to see Facebook apps grow strongly quarter on quarter, highlighting their dominance in the category. And we've also seen Instagram continuing to be a big climber with significant growth across the previous 2 quarters. Right, I will now pass you back to Chris, who will talk you through 2 customer case studies to illustrate our INTEGRA solutions in action.
Yeah, thank you, James. So yeah, we've got a couple of case studies here, just showing how we utilize the INTEGRA suite of services on a day-to-day basis to aid vessel managers when managing their communications. So into case study 1. So the vessel here has a VSAT as a primary connection, and the captain reports into our 24/7 support team that the internet connection is very poor. He reports he cannot access important weather information. His internet radio is actually unable to establish a connection, and images on websites will not download. So this is reported into the AST Global Customer Support team. And the first thing they do is take a look at our VSAT network monitoring tool to validate the connection. Now, this particular vessel has a 1 megabit per second download and 0.5 megabits per second upload MIR, with 102 kilobits per second download and 51 kilobits per second upload CIR. So you can see from the chart here, the green line being the download, that the vessel's receiving above their MIR majority of the time, and even above their MIR in some cases. So they're consistently receiving a very good VSAT service there. So the next thing we do is log into my AST portal to check INTEGRA C, and we look at the time period for the day that the vessels reported the problem. And we can very quickly see that there are 2.9 gigabits per second of Windows update happening on that day. So the visual bar charts show that the Windows update has been using all of that data for the day. So this would be the reason that the captain cannot use the connection for anything else. So very quickly, we advise the customer to use INTEGRA Control and block the network storage category in MyST portal to immediately stop the activity. So very simply go in and add that control. And the outcome being that very quickly, the customer was able to identify and control a bandwidth-hungry application. The bandwidth is available immediately, and the captain reports the connection working as expected. And from this scenario, the shoreside vessel manager identifies that the vessel onboard network configuration needs tightening up, and they can subsequently proceed to make informed decisions on those network changes. So moving on to case study number 2. So in this scenario, it's a new vessel communications solution. So they have a VSAT system on board and an Iridium Certus system as a backup. They've also upgraded the onboard IT infrastructure to incorporate the use of Office Outlook 365. And they've got a FortiGate on board there as well to help manage that IT infrastructure. So one evening, the customer receives a usage notification that the Certus has reached a threshold of 500 megabytes usage on their L Band service. It actually appears that the VSAT is in blockage, so the system is automatically failed over to L Band, but they're only expecting to see Outlook 365 usage there. So the first thing they do is go into INTEGRA C, and they very quickly identify that SharePoint 365 is consuming has consumed 569 megabytes worth of data. At this stage, they're not sure quite how that has happened, but they know it shouldn't be. So once they've checked and identified that the application is using that data, they go into INTEGRA Control and block the real-time communication category within there to immediately stop the additional consumption. So the outcome really was that in less than 5 minutes, the customer was able to resolve unwanted usage. They saved hundreds of dollars in additional megabyte usage. Importantly, they were able to maintain email connectivity without having to block all 365 traffic. And again, they were able to identify and stop this issue without logging onto a vessel firewall and risk using more megabytes over the backup connection. So again, as a new vessel deployment, this information enabled the customer to very quickly identify, control the usage, and subsequently take further action to tweak the onboard network. So just in summary, how do you get the most out of your connectivity provider? So the detailed level of reporting is an absolute necessity when rolling out maritime digitalization projects. As more applications are vying to use a vessel connection, it's imperative to have a granular level of control in order to ensure only the applications you want are using the connection. This real-time reporting allows informed decision-making on quality of service policies and ensuring the onboard network is optimized. Adding in the granular level of controls gives customers the ability to preserve bandwidth for business-critical applications. This information helps provide confidence for all parties in the satellite connection that everything is performing as expected. So that's it from us. So thanks very much for listening. And I think we'll now move into a Q&A.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I've never seen any of this data, and just get so many questions coming to mind. And I think it'd be great to have even more data because this is so useful and so important. So just like to draw the audience attention to the Q&A box. You can see there's already a question from Mikhail Riken from M4SAT and from Rob Myers. So I've just got a little warm-up question before we get onto those. Real-time communication. So what's how are you defining that? I thought you meant phone calls, but I don't think you did. That wasn't what you meant, was it?
So real-time communication applications, they get categorized. So we have to put everything into a category, and SharePoint is probably the one that you may not expect to be in that category, but it is a form of real-time communication, such as Microsoft Teams and Skype and things like that. So what we do is we categorize those all the different applications. If we try to offer a service that blocks all applications, there'd be thousands in there. So we have to put them into categories. Now you can block individual applications if you need to, and we can put that into the system.
Okay. And from a management point of view, I mean, you could be an IT manager with 100 ships, so you still get an enormous amount of data. So in terms of making it easier, so say a shipping company might say, look, I want half of it for personal communications, half of it for business communications. It's not obvious. Maybe you just say Facebook must be a consumer or consumer personal communications, whereas I couldn't see any actual business phone calls in your data. I don't know if that's separate, but you assume business phone calls on a different system to WhatsApp. So is that the sort of thing?
So most vessels have a voice over IP system for the office on board. So that gets categorized as SIP traffic.
Right, okay.
So we do see that, you know, there's substantial amounts of SIP traffic, but actually because of the codecs used when using a VoIP line, it's actually very small compared to the amounts of email and you know, web services. But there are still definitely, you know, when it all comes down to it, the ability to make a voice call over the connection is really what everyone wants as a minimum. But we see the data is now overtaking that method of communication.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds great. Well, we've got 5 questions now. I guess we'll maybe start at the top, shall we? So, Mikhail Righem, I think that was on one of your slides. You said is asking about the average connection speed for all vessels, and is there 2 megabits and 4 megabits shared bandwidth? Is that a
Yeah, so we generally see that a global sailing maritime vessel will take a connection from 2 megabits to 4 megabits per second download as an MIR, and then they'll have a CIR configured in there as well. So yeah, 2 megabits, 4 megabits per second is the maximum information rate on those connections.
Okay, and that's I googled CIR while you were talking actually, but so it's a committed information rate, maximum information rate. That's
correct. Yes.
Okay, and then we've got 2 upvotes. There's 2 top questions. Is it possible to set an email notification once high data usage is detected?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so the system can you can have alerts set at any megabyte usage at a category level. So if you have the real-time communication category, for example, you can set an alert for that to be in place. You can also set alert on your L band usage as well, the megabyte usage for the overall service. So it really gives you that very in-depth control of the services on board.
Wow, so Gordon Wendland is asking about application rules per carrier. I think he means telecom carrier. So you set different rules for Iridium and Inmarsat. I think that's what he means.
Yes, correct. So yeah, if you have a VSAT service and an L band service from whichever provider, you can set different INTEGRA control rules per service. So for example, the L band, you could block absolutely everything and only allow email. And then on the VSAT service, you can open the connection up some more.
Okay, so Rob Myers is asking, Chris, you mentioned intrusion prevention. Can you expand on what this means in terms of INTEGRA? And he's got 2 more acronyms. I don't know, IPS and IDS. Do you know what those acronyms mean?
I'm not sure what IPS or IDS are, but the intrusion prevention is situated on basically within the INTEGRA network. So we provide, yeah, so that network is fully secure in the way that we deploy it. I can definitely find out what IPS and IDS are, and I'll probably have to speak to our IT manager to find out a bit more on that.
Well, there we go. And John Joyce is asking, any comments with optimizing encrypted data over VSAT? Don't know how you optimize encrypted data. You can't compress it, I suppose, can you?
No, we can't really compress it, but we can identify it, and we can optimize it in the sense that you know, WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp as a good example because there's so many different services within WhatsApp. There's WhatsApp Media, WhatsApp Communication, WhatsApp voice calling, video calling. So in terms of optimization, what you can do is identify those individual applications, block them, or you can add bandwidth controls. So you can limit the speed that the category for those applications, you can limit the speed on that as well. So you can say, I only want that category of applications to use half a meg of my speed. So we can put that throttle in place.
Okay, so Steinar Skjelanga is asking, can you identify secure socket layer VPN traffic? I think you can, I think from what you were saying earlier.
Yes, so yeah, peer-to-peer traffic is how that's categorized. So we can identify and subsequently block SSL and VPN traffic, yes.
Oh, okay. So Dimitrios Fountokoudis, Microsoft applications have a priority over other on the bandwidth. I didn't notice that, but this is well known even on home usage or using OneDrive to synchronize data. Maybe it means within Microsoft operating system, Microsoft is prioritizing its own bandwidth. I'm not sure. Have you noticed any similar matters when the servers are Linux, but with Microsoft products? That's quite a complicated question, but
I think, yeah, we don't necessarily see Microsoft applications having priority. We do see a lot of usage, you know, and people are trying to use Microsoft Teams on board vessels. Outlook 365, as James mentioned in the slides, is ever growing, and we're starting to see SharePoint now as well. So we don't see them as priority, but they are they're very bandwidth hungry, which means they do. You know, they do try and use all the connection whenever possible. So without controls in place on those applications, they can take over.
okay. And yeah, so coming on to the IPS intrusion prevention system or intrusion detection system. I guess that's another software tool which would scan all your network and try and work out what was happening and warn people, I suppose, isn't it? But
yeah, so because all the points of presence are in you know, data centers. So we have those systems in place on the servers and in data centers for intrusion prevention. But I can find out probably a bit more about that from our IT team.
so Gordon Wendland is asking about quality of service functionality. I think that's kind of what you showed, is it? You're kind of monitoring what the quality of the service is, and or if it's automatic, I suppose.
Yeah, there's the quality of service is really putting a quality of service policy in place is a multitude of things. You've got the onboard firewall, which can provide quality of service for individual networks on board and prioritize networks over networks. So you can prioritize the business network over the crew network in terms of quality of service. But this goes into the next layer, which is, you know, quality of service functionality in terms of the applications that are using that data as well. So with a limited connection, you can provide all the quality of service for the network on board, but if you're still trying to put a huge amount of data through that one pipe, as it were, or one connection, that's where the quality of service is really needed to improve any quality.
Okay, so the next question, John Joyce is the network administrator from PGS in Norway. So this Microsoft Teams, that comes up quite a lot in our discussions. I think people must be having enormous nightmares with trying to make this work.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams, right? So I mean, if you're deploying Microsoft Teams on board a vessel, it depends how many. If you want to do sort of one-to-one video functionality, you need about a 1 megabits per second download connection. Will work for that. But if you're wanting to do one-to-many calls, then the bandwidth required is, you know, 2, 3, 4 megabits per second plus to do so. Now, what we have done with some customers is when they've had scheduled Teams calls, they go into my ST portal, they block all the categories. So they block all other data from coming off the vessel, apart from Microsoft Teams, and they can subsequently, you know, that traffic all gets prioritized, so they can have their video call or voice call.
Yeah, I did an interview with the CEO of Tome Ship Management a little while ago, and he said, "I'm so pleased I can do Microsoft Teams to the ship." I suppose what's really happening when he does this is they're going, "Guys, we've got to shut everything down because the boss wants to do a video call."
Yeah, you have to stop every other piece of data coming off that connection, before you can do a Teams call.
Well, we don't have any more questions on the board, but I've got a few more of my own while we wait. But what's your advice if people want to do video conferencing? Is Teams your advice, or have you found a better way to do it?
I mean, it really did. I mean, any sort of video platform such as Teams, Zoom, Skype for some reason seems particularly data hungry, but Teams does seem to be the one that people are moving towards. I mean, you have to have there has to be a QoS policy in place on the networks on board, and then we have provided short-term bandwidth upgrades to deal with Teams calls. So if a customer wants to upgrade their VSAT bandwidth for a day or two, so they can have their important monthly meeting or something like that, then we can do that. Again, we've seen with video, people carrying out remote video inspections on board vessels, and using various different technology. I think there's lots of different ways to do video, but if you can compress it and put codecs in place that allow it to minimize the amount of bandwidth, then that's definitely the way forward to get a good quality video service working.
Yeah. And one of the themes, I suppose, in terms of what people actually want to do with this is you've got some data which is quite small, but you want to send it quite reliably, the equivalent of an SMS message on your phone. And I guess that must be something your customers are asking for, like if it's a sensor on some important fuel tank or something, they really want it to get home. And I guess is that the kind of practical usage people are asking for these kind of things, do you think?
Yeah, so particularly monitoring, and again, we do that with prioritizing the bandwidth on the onboard network, but then we can also view it running over the whole connection as well. So that we do see that the monitoring side of things is increasing in small amounts of bandwidth, and you can put QoS policies in place to enable that to have a certain amount of your VSAT connection, for example. So you could say, I want that to have 32 kilobits per second all the time, that particular application.
So QRS, did you say QoS or QoS?
QoS, quality of service policies.
Okay, so if you had a sensor, you said this is only sending something once a month, but I just want to be really sure it sends its data through reliably. It doesn't need 32 kilobits a second, but it wants sort of high priority over any TikTok videos. Is that a typical practice?
Yeah, so we can prioritize that in sort of various locations. Again, through the onboard network, we can also prioritize that over the VSAT connection in the on the infrastructure side. And then we can subsequently, via the INTEGRA suite of services, we can identify that application is running as expected.
Okay, so we go back to the Q&A board. I see there's two questions up here. So Salvador Gomez is asking, can we monitor L Band and VSAT connections simultaneously? Is it on a single screen? Is that something you can do?
Yeah,
go on, James.
So I was just going to say, yeah, so you can, it's done at a SIM level for L band and then a VSAT level, but it allows you for INTEGRA C to see the top 10 usage of applications or categories for that calendar month. So it gives you the full duration of the calendar month to be able to look at the data usage and behavior. And through INTEGRA C Plus that we offer, it gives you the 3 months calendar of information. So we're able to give you a good kind of overview of the data usage and behavior, but it's all on largely one screen and one click and expansion on.
Okay, there's another question from Salvador asking about the change in data usage over COVID. I think that came through in your slides when you were showing the trends over the quarters, but maybe you've got some more things you'd like to add there.
I think, I think there has been, we've seen a real change in usage and a real adoption of, new technologies on board vessels has been pushed out probably quicker than anticipated. Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen new applications come in, so we're constantly updating the Integra suite as new applications are identified. So this is updated on a monthly basis. So, you know, for example, the addition of line chat, James? Yeah, yes. Line chat into the individual applications that we can block as well. So we're constantly developing the Integra suite of services to move forward and keep up to date with the ever-changing demands.
Oh, what about the senior officers on the queue being able to, on the vessel, being able to manage this themselves? I suppose that's kind of an ideal situation where the people can say, look, guys, this is the bandwidth we got, but we'll decide what you're going to do, and we can sort of all have a meeting on board and decide what we're going to use it for. Is that a...
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. Some customers do want people to be able to do it, and other customers don't want people on board to be able to identify to use this control. So, but you know, the portal has hierarchy access as well, so we can give the vessel side teams access to my SC portal, and they can see and make changes to Integra control if the shipping company or ship vessel operator deems that's what they want them to do. But predominantly, to be honest, we see it being used by shoreside IT teams to get an overview and have that high level visibility of what's going on with each connection on board.
Yeah, I mean, often IT people get flack for not understanding how shipping companies work, and maybe somebody else has an input they'd like to make on. But I guess it's still quite a sort of fairly complicated device to use. So I suppose you probably need the IT department is probably the people who are going to be the first to look at this on there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the portal is fairly intuitive itself. So anyone, I'm pretty confident that anyone can log in there and they can see visual bar charts, they can see block application icons and things like that. So it's not like a Cisco device or a Meraki device or FortiGate device or something like that, which does require a very good level of IT knowledge to configure. It is an intuitive and easy to use portal that someone on board a vessel could very easily use.
Oh, that's great. In terms of that social media usage you showed, because I mean, it's very interesting, maybe just to look at to see that the trends are going from lines in Malaysia. But in terms of business value of this, it's something you obviously thought about when you were putting the effort into making this data. I mean, how, I guess maybe a shipping company might say, look, I just want to know what they're doing on social media. That's all I want to know. Or is there business value from knowing some of this, do you think? Or at least seeing how the seafarers are making use of what's being given to them personally? Or is that something you thought about?
I think it's very beneficial. If, for example, with the VSAT usage, it allows you to see, like one of Chris's examples, if there's a lot of congestion across the VSAT connection, then being able to have that level of in-depth knowledge, for example, that Facebook or anything like that is using a lot of the data that's passing through the bandwidth, then it allows you to implement controls, blocking, throttling, and speeds, so you can still provide crew with a good level of welfare, but equally as a business, that you can also ensure that business critical applications continue to operate, predominantly up the bandwidth, but also, like I say, crew receive their welfare as well.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think just to add to that, James, as well, when making decisions on, how much bandwidth do I actually need to purchase for my vessel, this sort of information is valuable when going to management within a shipping company or something like that to say, look, I absolutely need to maybe increase my spend on vessel communications or at least increase my bandwidth to serve all the different stakeholders that are wanting to use that data. I want to go from 2 megabits per second download connection to 4. And these are all the reason why, because this data is being used, etc. It provides that insight and those arguments for upgrading speed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point, actually. So say somebody goes to the CFO and says, look, I want an extra I don't know what extra 2 megabits a day costs, but or 2 megabits per second. You know, I want this extra, and the guy says, "Will show me exactly what business value I'm getting from this." So now people have got tools; they can say, "Look, we're getting sent to data once an hour instead of once a day, and we're letting crew make a lot of phone calls, and look what they're using it for. They're making good use of they're not just downloading TikTok; they are actually talking to their wives, and you know, I suppose that's all."
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's real value in that, and being able to, you know, they may turn around and say, well, you need to put a tighter policy in place instead of uploading the bandwidth, but at least you've got the information to be able to make that informed decision instead of just blindly upgrading services to ease congestion, you know.
I mean, there's a difference in culture between the IT and the senior management, because the IT are kind of managing the whole thing and making sure it doesn't fall over, whereas the senior management are interested in business cases to do something new and got capability to agree spending if they see it makes sense, doesn't it? So
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many new things people are talking about using ship communications for that they can't, but this sort of makes it much easier to understand what's going on. I think. Yeah, oh, it's fascinating. I suppose we're going to see far more of this in the future and more insight. And I guess it costs a lot of money to do this analytics, but it gets the more and more people that do it, the more viable it gets. And you know, I'd like to know.
I mean, it doesn't really cost us too much money to do the analytics, as we've got all the data ourselves. It just takes a bit of time, but it's certainly something that we're going to continue to look at in a quarterly basis. So we can, you know, identify and present to our customers some definite trends in vessel usage.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a breakdown of this AWS traffic, but I guess that's possible to do, but it's all effort and time. But over time, I guess it's all kind of the richness of this data is going to improve, I imagine, isn't it? And,
yeah, correct. Yeah,
there's so much money being spent; it's worth it for people to know and find out what they're doing, isn't it? And,
yeah, absolutely. You know, a vessel connection solution is not cheap, you know, when you put everything together. So it's imperative to understand that's what it's being used for is correctly being used, and you know, you're making them getting the most out of that as well.
Okay, well, we're coming to the end now. I mean, if there's any final comments you'd like to make, I mean, I think the sort of summary is that this is I think the way shipping communications is going, people are going to demand this data once they've seen it once, and I suppose all the other SATCOM companies will need to find a way to provide it somewhere or another, and much more calibrated, much more detail, much more insight into security challenges, and imagination goes wild just seeing this about what's possible and things we've never seen before. So that's how I see this going, and
yeah, I think certainly it's a very useful tool in making informed decisions moving forward. It's not the be all and end all. There's obviously other solutions out there, and there has to be integration with onboard networks to provide the full picture. But certainly, you know, it gives you that visibility to make those informed decisions, optimize your onboard network, and it gives everyone the confidence to understand that they are getting the service they pay for, and it's being used in the right way.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I think that's come to the end. Then I shall pass back to Vida for the closing words. Then thank you very much. Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Great story and discussion. Thanks also to our speakers, Chris Schonhut, Head of Maritime Sales and Operations, and James Ingham, Product Manager of INTEGRA. Both of them work with Applied Satellite Technology, who is also sponsoring this webinar. For the audience, some attention. Next week, we are moving into December, and we'll be covering vessel performance topics exclusively, starting with a discussion on flow meters next Thursday with Wardzila. For more webinars, you can visit our website, webinars.thedigitalship.com. You will see what webinars we have planned for next year. Please check it out. If you have a story, please let us know. And now Digital Ship is signing off. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.